Hello, this is Jeremy Iverson with Colectica. In this video, I'm going to demonstrate some of the newer features in Blaise Colectica Questionnaires. So the first one I want to show is drag and drop, which we've added to allow you to help organize surveys much more quickly than was previously possible. So in the design surface here, I have a number of sections at the top level of my survey. And if I wanted to, for example, move the demographics section so it's first before the family section, I can just drag from this gripper over on the left and go up, and it's going to place that demographics section first now. Now we have to be a little careful with this because in some cases, like this one, the children roster here is depending on a question from the family roster. So the family roster must ask about how many children do you have, as we see here. And so if we go back up to the top and we try to drag the family section down below the children's roster, Blaise Colectica Questionnaires is going to be smart enough to know that some information is needed for that subsequent item. So we're still allowed to move it if we want to, but it's going to warn us that those inputs will be broken, and what we'll have to do then is fulfill them some other way. So we can do that, but in this case I'm just going to say no, thank you for warning me, and we won't do that rearrangement. So that's the sections. We can also, of course, drill into the individual areas, and if we want to rearrange the questions within those sections, we can do that as well. All right, so another new feature is search. So we're able to search within an instrument to find something. So looking at the top level here, I can see we're asking about demographics and family and kids and work and things. So let's say I'm interested in commuting, see if we have any questions about that. So I'll just search for commute, and down at the bottom, I'll get my results list. We can see that we do have a couple questions. They're in the work section or work block, and I can double click that to navigate to that particular section and have that particular question highlighted for me. It'll search all the text that we have available, so it can find things within the question text or names or the metadata or the categories or other response information as well. All right, next up, I want to take a look at some calculations that are now possible. So if I go into the demographics section, let's add one of those computations. We've always been able to add the different question types and reuse things from the repository, but in this case, let's say we want to compute some new information from a previous question. So I will add that computation to the design surface. And in the inputs area, I get to define what do I want available in my computation. So let's say I want to base this on that age question that we've asked previously. I'll hit OK. And now if I go to the code, this is where I can enter some custom Blaise code that's going to appear. And let's say we want to calculate the person's age as if they were a dog. So we could say dog years is set to the person's age divided by 7. And then in the outputs, we're going to want to say that this calculation is providing the dog years field, or we can define it in Blaise as a field or a local. In this case, let's leave it as a local because we're just going to use it in some display logic up ahead. And we can say that that's going to be a numeric data type. So we can define as many inputs and outputs as we want. And when we go to our code view, we're able to see the input tokens and output tokens that are available to us. So you can write just straight up Blaise in here, and it's going to get inserted into your rules section. These tokens are nice, though, in the sense that this is actually a reusable computation that you could use in multiple surveys. And in some surveys, you might define the inputs, like age, to be different fields. Maybe it would be respondent age or person age. But when you use these replaceable tokens surrounded by curly braces, you're able to write the code once, and then in future surveys you'll be able to define what hooks up to those inputs in different ways. And here I can do that by clicking the input and saying, for this age input, let's use the age question. From this selector, I can choose from all the numeric variables or numeric fields that are in scope so far in the survey. And I'll hit save there. and let's also, instead of leaving that saying new competition, or sorry, new computation, we can go to the description and say dog age calculation. Give it a little bit of information. We could go into a lot more detail with the description and with other metadata fields as well. And then let's move that calculation up to immediately after we get the age. And then let's also then output a statement conditionally, but we'll say, puppy, you are just a puppy. And we'll hit close. And then we're only going to show that message if we have some display logic that says, this is the next thing I want to show, which is the ability to define this display logic using Blaise code instead of the built-in expression editor. For this particular example, we actually could use the expression editor to say if dog ears is less than, let's say, 3. But just to show the Blaise capabilities here, I'm going to check this box that says to use native code. And now I'm going to be able to say, what are my inputs? Again, I'm going to say the dog ears field that we previously calculated. And what is the code? So it's going to be dog ears is less than 3, we'll go with. And then we can add a human readable description if we want to. So you are a puppy if you are less than 3 years old. And then we'll save that. So now we've got that Blaise condition defined. It's showing us the description as well as the Blaise code that we've specified there. So for more complex conditions, then you might be happy to build in that visual expression editor. You're able now to write the Blaise code yourself. All right, and speaking of conditions and writing Blaise code, the next feature I wanted to show is our new validation for Blaise surveys that you're designing in Blaise Colectica Questionnaires. So you'll notice the button up here that says check for errors. And that's going to perform a number of checks that basically make sure that we are able to generate Blaise code correctly for the questionnaire. So this particular survey I think would generate just fine right now, but in order to create an error to show this validation, let me go back to this input and let's unhook it. So we won't provide the appropriate input for that age in the calculation. So I will hit save, and we'll notice it triggers right away. We've now got the red indicator there, and we also have this message down in our errors list that says that the dog age calculation requires an input parameter, but none has been specified. And so this will come up throughout the instrument and show you all the errors there might be. If I'm looking somewhere else in a large instrument and I want to go through and fix everything, I can go through one at a time, double click them, and I'll navigate right there. Then I can quickly say, okay, yes, it needs an input, and let's set it to that previous question's value. Hit save there, and then the error list will be empty, so we're happy. All right, so let's go back to the top level, and let's say we're ready to generate our Blaise code. That'll bring us to the last new feature that I want to demonstrate. So I'm going to say let's output to here, and then let's set the code generation strategy to combine the sequences to generate as few blocks as possible. So in prior versions we generated some pretty verbose Blaise code, and in a lot of times that's quite all right. But if you want some more concise Blaise code that doesn't generate a block for every sequence that you might specify here, unless it's needed, for example, for the children's roster it's still going to be needed, we can check that box and we'll get a lot cleaner code. We also have the option now whether to automatically compile the code and launch the Blaise data entry program, which you can certainly do if you have Blaise installed on your computer, but it does take maybe 30 seconds to complete that. And so if you just want to generate the code quickly, see what it looks like, you can leave that unchecked. So in this case, I'll leave it unchecked. I'll click generate, and we can see that it happens pretty instantaneously. We've now got our source code for the sample social survey. I can launch that in Blaise if I want to take a look at what it looks like and maybe launch the data entry program to run that. All right, so here's Blaise with the survey launched. You can see we've got our data model with a lot of types defined for all those multiple choice questions. And then down below that, we'll have a block made for the child roster. And then down below that, we will have the block for the time use question grid. And down below that, we'll have a block for all the other questions in the instruments that have been kind of merged into a single block in the Blaise code. And then down below that, we will have the rules. And we'll have some more blocks for the other question grids. And then finally, we'll get to the rules that we'll see at the kind of the main section of the survey, or the top level of the survey. So we start by saying welcome, ask the age, calculate the dog years, do the conditional, and then go through the rest of the questions and ask those. All right, so thank you for taking the time to watch the video. We hope you enjoy the B Club meeting, and we're sorry we couldn't be there. But if you're interested in trying out this latest version, either get in touch with us or get in touch with the Blaise team, and we'll be happy to send you an evaluation. Thank you,